This is ChoWorld. We will examine the core messages regarding tariffs that President Trump intends to convey, along with his opinions, supporting reasons, and future prospects. Therefore, I will present this information to you. Trump was asked about tariffs. In response to this question, President Trump answered as follows. The market has a trade deficit of $1 billion. When looking at trade deficits with certain countries, it exceeds $1 billion per country. But with China, it amounts to $1 trillion, and we must resolve the trade deficit with China. Then he continued saying, the trade deficit with China is $1 trillion. Every year we lose hundreds of billions of dollars to China. Unless this issue is resolved, I will not engage in trade. I am now willing to do business with China, but they must resolve their trade surplus issue. China records a trade surplus of at least $1 trillion every year. In my opinion, it's about $1 trillion, and that problem must be resolved. No other president is addressing this issue. Previously, China attempted to resolve this issue, and afterward there was a rigged election. No other president is addressing this issue. So, as you know, China asserts that the market has already spoken. Currently, China is taking a significant hit. Because everyone knows that we are right, they must pay tariffs. Otherwise, it would lead to an unsustainable surplus in our trade with them. Based on this, Trump emphasizes that the United States is suffering losses to China and explains that the US had been making too many concessions. Then Trump continues, in response to the question, Mr. President, we are talking about $1 trillion, as you know. He answers, we cannot afford to lose $1 trillion due to the trivial privilege of buying something as insignificant as pencils in China. However, I want to resolve the trade deficit issues with China, the European Union, and other countries. They must definitely resolve these issues. If they wish to discuss this matter, I am willing to engage in dialogue. Otherwise, why should I engage in dialogue? Then President Trump explains the effect of tariffs. And as you know, thanks to the tariffs, investments worth $7 trillion have already been promised. Within the United States, automobile factories, semiconductor companies, and various businesses are entering our country on an unprecedented scale. Under Biden, no investment came in. At that time, the country looked like a dead company. And at that time, we had no idea what Biden was doing. At least that has now been proven. Trump held discussions with numerous leaders from around the world, including Europe and Asia. Afterwards, he stated, they are desperate for a deal, but I will not make a deal. Your country will suffer a huge deficit. Many new deficits will arise. We cannot allow that because for me, a deficit means defeat. We will either run a surplus or, at worst, break even. However, China is the biggest problem because its deficit is too large, and that is not sustainable. Furthermore, Trump goes on to emphasize the background of his election. As you know, I was elected because of this issue. This is one of the biggest reasons I won. It is precisely because of this. And we will impose tariffs. The tariffs have already been implemented. It is not a question of whether tariffs will be imposed. They will definitely be imposed. Next year, $1 trillion will come in because of these tariffs. In addition to $1 trillion, thousands of companies will relocate back to the United States. In North Carolina, for example, furniture-related companies have already begun to relocate. The same applies to Detroit and Michigan, where I said I won. Automobile companies have started opening their doors. For instance, in Indiana, a large-scale factory is under construction. Several companies, including Honda, are relocating at a pace never seen before. And then Trump issues a very firm warning. Therefore, allowing China to maintain a $1 trillion surplus is not sustainable. Thanks to the tariffs I have already implemented, we will earn over $1 trillion in a short period of time. The tariffs have already been enforced. I cannot say what will happen in the market next, but one thing is certain. Our country has become much stronger. and ultimately our country will become a nation incomparable to any other. It will become the most dominant country in the global economy, and that is only natural. When asked, does Trump put exist? Is the market in pain? Trump responded, sometimes you have to take medicine to solve problems. Then Trump explains the situation of the United States in a slightly indignant tone. This is a truly terrible situation. Because of our foolish leadership, we have been treated terribly by other countries. They have taken our companies, taken our money, and taken our jobs. They have moved our companies to Mexico, Canada, and even China. And that is not sustainable. Now, billions of dollars are pouring into our country. They are pouring in every month, and it has already begun. This is because tariffs have been imposed. In the end, everything will be set right, and our country will become firm and strong once again. Elon Musk said that he hopes tariffs will be reduced to zero, and in response, Trump said the following: the problem is that Europe has been reaping enormous profits along with us. As you know, Europe has also recorded enormous trade surpluses with the United States. To put it mildly, the way Europe treats us has been very, very poor. Not only China, but Europe as well. We imposed high tariffs on Europe, and now they are coming to the negotiating table. They want dialogue. However, unless they pay us a lot of money every year, there will be no dialogue, not only currently, but in the past. They have been taking away our wealth, and we cannot continue to allow that. In response to the question of whether he had recently spoken with the most prominent figures, Trump answered as follows: I have spoken with many people, but I have spoken with 4 or 5 individuals considered the most prominent figures. They said, we do not blame you, I do not want to disclose too much, but perhaps I can relay what they said. Did you see it on video? We need to find out if they are concerned. I do not know if that was a confidential call, but we spoke with 5 or 6 people. We have spoken with several countries, and everyone wants to make a deal. I want you to understand the power of what I am doing. Every country is calling us, showing great interest, and treating us very kindly, and we must be able to justify it. This is not sustainable. Here, to add ChoWorld's opinion for a moment, it can be understood that in negotiations using such tariffs, there is a set amount of time during which negotiations must take place, and Trump is well aware of this and will make use of it. It is worth noting that Trump, before becoming president, was a businessman and is someone who knows how to negotiate. And this has the potential to gradually lead to improved outcomes. Trump then went on to emphasize America's trade deficit. The United States cannot lose $1.9 trillion in trade. We cannot allow that, and while we are spending a lot of money on NATO to protect European countries, we are losing money in trade. Overall, this situation is crazy, and I was elected on that basis. We have explained it. As you know, the American people understand this far better than the media. The media also understand this, and many outlets have reported it correctly. Then, Trump specifically mentioned the possibility of lowering tariffs. According to reports, he almost struck a deal with TikTok. Rather, it nearly came to fruition, but afterwards, China changed the terms of the deal due to tariff issues. Had I slightly reduced the tariffs, the deal would have been approved within 15 minutes. This demonstrates the power of tariffs, doesn't it? Finally, he concludes by mentioning the countries that agreed to lower tariffs. In response to the question among the countries we spoke with today, is there any country that agreed to lower tariffs? Trump answers as follows: we are trading with countries that record enormous surpluses. On the other hand, we also have enormous deficits. This needs to be corrected. We cannot continue like this. We have been doing this for years, and it can no longer continue. We are like a piggy bank with all the benefits. For now, forget about the market. We will surely set this situation right and become a wealthy nation once again, with a wealth that has never been seen before, and we will not allow other nations that continue to exploit us whether it is China, the European Union, or any European country. To do so, it was like a banquet. Look, the European Union was formed for one reason. Do you know what it was? It was to exploit America. So please keep that in mind. Thus, we have learned about Trump's thoughts. In summary, it appears that Trump introduced tariffs to reduce America's fiscal deficit and to amass huge funds. From the perspective of Trump and the United States, this seems to be a desperate struggle for survival. From the American point of view, this is not necessarily seen as a bad thing. From the US standpoint, it is unavoidable to check an emerging China that threatens America, and the deficit shifting toward Europe, comparable in seriousness to China's, is also a situation that cannot be ignored. Furthermore, the reason Trump became president was because the American people longed for job creation in domestic manufacturing and a reduction in the trade deficit, and since Trump had less time than expected, it is presumed that he resorted to such extreme negotiations accompanied by rather audacious calculations. In other words, while many American citizens oppose it, there is also a considerable number who support it. Currently, because Trump has several strong reasons and the support of the people, it does not seem easy for countries desiring negotiations to lower tariffs through ordinary bargaining. For example, Hyundai rushed into negotiations and promised investments worth trillions, yet this case is seen as one where the tax cuts were not significantly helped. It appears that a certain amount of time is absolutely necessary for the situation to calm down, and Trump defines that he must endure this period. Here, a ChoWorld comment. Among the many reckless reasons for imposing such tariffs, a major one is that it strongly reflects the intention of the United States to seize AI hegemony. Currently, in China, the strength of AI centered around Alibaba continues to rise, and with China equipped with both robust capabilities and high performance, it is in a situation where, given enough time, it can reach a level on par with the United States. Since AI, which will change every industry, technically wields power comparable to that of nuclear weapons, it can be said that in order to overcome this AI hegemony, there is also an objective to globally raise funds from other countries to build a more robust AI in a situation where massive investments like Stargate must occur. That concludes the ChoWorld summary and comment. Please subscribe and like. Thank you.